Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to present revision on Chapter 1, which is the second episode for the revision of Chapter 1, which is transition elements. We are going to discuss different types of questions and we are going to discuss their model answers. So let us start. Choose the correct answer. Zinc positive 2, zinc ion 2 is characterized by its diamagnetic property due to what? Presence of 3d paired electrons, 3d sublevel is filled by 8 electrons, 3d sublevel is filled by 5 electrons, the presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about it, yes, it will be the presence of 3d paired electrons. Next point. All the following ions are paramagnetic except what? Vanadium positive 2, chromium positive 2, zinc positive 2, iron positive 2. If you think about it, my dear student, you will find the answer is zinc positive 2. This is the only ion here that is diamagnetic, as the zinc has completely filled the sublevel in the ionic state positive 2 also. Next point. Zinc 2 ion is colorless due to what? Presence of 3d paired electrons, 3d sublevel is filled by 1 electron, 3d sublevel is filled by 8 electrons, the presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you read the electronic configuration, you will find that the presence of 3d paired electrons. Next point. All the following ions are colored except what? Vanadium positive 2, chromium positive 2, zinc positive 2, iron positive 2. You will find that the only zinc positive 2 is colorless, as the d sublevel is completely filled in the positive 2 oxidation state. Next point. Iron 2 ion is characterized by its paramagnetic property due to what? Presence of 3d unpaired electrons, the 3d sublevel is filled by 10 electrons, the 3d sublevel is empty, the presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. The reason for that is the presence of 3d unpaired electrons. Next point. The atomic number of metal, its magnetic moment is 2 equals what? 23 or 29, 21 or 22 or 28 or 27. If you draw the d sublevels that will have 2 unpaired electrons, you will find the answer here. It will be 22 or 28 electrons in the element. Next point. Iron 2 ion is colored due to what? Presence of 3d unpaired electrons, 3d sublevel is filled by 10 electrons, 3d sublevel is empty, the presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about the answer, my dear student, it will be 3d unpaired electrons. Remember, my dear students, the unpaired electrons makes the property of the element in the color. It will be colored and also paramagnetic. Without founding unpaired electrons, all the electrons are paired, or the d sublevel is empty, it will be colorless and diamagnetic. Next point. The magnetic moment for the paramagnetic substance increases by increasing of what? The atomic number, the mass number, the number of single electrons, the number of paired electrons. If you think about it, Yes, it will be number of single electrons. Next point. Copper 1 ion is colorless due to what? Presence of 3d paired electrons. The 3d sublevel is filled by 1 electron. 3d sublevel is filled by 8 electrons. The presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about it, yes, it will be the presence of 3d paired electrons. Next point. Copper 1 ion is characterized by its diamagnetic property due to what? Presence of 3d paired electrons. 3d sublevel is filled by 8 electrons. 3d sublevel is filled by 5 electrons. D, the presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about the answer, yes, it will be the presence of 3d paired electrons. Next point. Copper 2 ion is characterized by its paramagnetic property due to what? Presence of 3d unpaired electrons. 3d sublevel is filled by 10 electrons. 3d sublevel is empty. The presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about the answer, yes, it will be the presence of 3d unpaired electrons. Next point. Copper 2 ion is colored due to what? Presence of 3d unpaired electrons. 3d sublevel is filled by 10 electrons. 3d sublevel is empty. The presence of unpaired electrons in 4s sublevel. If you think about the answer, yes, it will be presence of 3d unpaired electrons. The next type of questions, write the scientific term. Substances which are repelled with the external magnetic field because of all electrons are paired. Yes, the answer, it will be diamagnetic substance. Next point. The number of unpaired electrons in the d sublevel, if you think about it, yes, it will be magnetic moment. Next point. A substance that is attracted to an external magnetic field due to the presence of unpaired electron. If you think about it, yes, it will be paramagnetic substance. Next point. The absorbed color from the visible spectrum by transition element. If you think about it, yes, it will be supplementary color. Next point. The reflected color from the visible spectrum by transition element. If you think about it, yes, it will be complementary color. The elements that have partially filled D or F sublevel in their free state or ionic state, if you think about it, yes, it will be transition elements. Next type of question, give reason for. The atomic radius of the first transition series is nearly constant from chromium to copper. This is due to the two factors that opposite to each other. Increasing positive nuclear charge that increases the attraction force of electrons, increases the number of electrons in the 3d sublevel that increases the repulsion force between the electrons. Next point. Elements of the first transition series are used in making alloys. The reason that because their atomic radius is nearly constant. Next point. The first transition series have high melting and boiling point. The reason for that is due to the strong interatomic bonding metallic bond that involves the electrons of 4s and 3d sublevels in the electron cloud. Next point, the density of the first transition series increases with increasing atomic number. The reason that because their atomic mass increases while is increasing the atomic number, and so the atomic radius is nearly constant. As density equal high mass over constant volume, so density increases. Next point. The first transition series have variable chemical reactivity. Because copper has low reactivity, while iron has medium reactivity, rust when exposed to air, and scandium has high reactivity. Next point. The phase transition series are attracted to an external magnetic field. This is due to the presence of unpaired electrons in the 3D orbitals, such that the magnetic field resulted from their spin motion is attracted with the external magnetic field. Next point. The magnetic moment of the first transition series determines the electronic configuration of their ions. The reason for that, because the measurement of their magnetic moment indicates the number of unpaired electrons in their d sublevel. Next point. Zinc chloride is diamagnetic, but manganese chloride is paramagnetic. The reason for that, zinc has electronic configuration argon 18 3d10, so all the electrons as shown on the screens are paired in the completely filled d sublevel. But manganese positive 2 argon 18 3d5, so has 5 electrons unpaired in the d sublevel as shown on the screen. Next point. Iron 3 compounds have higher magnetic property than iron 2 compound. The reason for that, as iron positive 2 has electronic configuration argon 18 3d6, so have 4 unpaired electrons at the sublevel, so have lower magnetic moment than iron positive 3 that has electronic configuration argon 18 3d5 that has 5 unpaired electrons in the d sublevel. Next point. The elements of the first transition series act as catalyst. The reason for that, the electrons in the 4s and the 3d sublevels form weak bonds with the reactant molecules, so increasing their concentration at the catalyst surface, and that weaken the bond in the reactant molecules, and decreasing their activation energy, so increases the rate of chemical reaction. Next type of question. Choose the correct answer. All the following compounds are iron ores except what? Magnetite, limonite, dolomite, hematite. If you think about it, yes, it will be dolomite. Next point. Iron is found in the free state in what? Siderite, meteorites, Earth's crust rocks, alumina. If you think about it, yes, it will be meteorites. Next point. On heating iron 3 oxide in the presence of mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas, it is reduced to what? Iron 2 oxide, magnetic iron oxide, iron, mixture of iron 2 and iron 3 oxide. If you think about it, yes, it will be iron. Next point. On heating iron 3 oxide with carbon monoxide gas, it is reduced to what? Iron 2 oxide, magnetic iron oxide, iron, mixture of iron 2 and iron 3 oxide. If you think about it, yes, it will be iron. Next point. Furnace that reduce iron ore by water gas is what? Blast furnace, matrix furnace, electric furnace, oxygen converter. If you think about it, yes, it will be matrix furnace. Next point. Furnace that reduce iron by carbon monoxide gas is what? Matrix furnace, blast furnace, electric furnace, oxygen converter. If you think about it, yes, it will be blast furnace. Next point. The iron produced from the oxygen converter is what? Cast iron, steel, pig iron, A and B together. If you think about it, yes, it will be A and B together. Next point. Heating iron ore strongly in air, which is called roasting, to convert it to what? Iron 3 oxide, iron 2 sulfate, iron 2 carbonate, iron 2 sulfide. If you think about it and write the chemical equation, it will be iron 3 oxide. Next point. Siderite ore is what? Iron 2 hydrated, iron 2 oxide, iron 2 carbonate, iron 3 oxide. Yes, if you think about it, it will be iron 2 carbonate. Next point. The iron is extracted in blast furnace from what type of ore? Is it siderite, limonite, magnetite, hematite? Yes, the answer it will be hematite. Next type of questions. Write the scientific term for alloy of two elements or more. Their atoms have the same diameter, chemical properties, and crystalline structure. Yes, the answer it will be substitutional alloy. One of the iron ores which has blood red color. If you think about it, yes, it will be hematite. Heating iron ore strongly in air to be dried and to expel humidity and to increase the percentage of iron, so it will be roasting process. Next point. An alloy formed when its elements are chemically combined. Yes, it will be intermetallic alloy. Next type of question. Give reason for. Iron ore is heated strongly in air during extraction of iron due to the drying ore, which to get rid of humidity, and converting the ore into iron 3 oxide to increase the percentage of iron, such that iron 2 carbonate, that's the percentage of iron 48.5%, on heating it changes into carbon dioxide and iron 2 oxide. That iron 2 oxide is oxidized by air, giving iron 3 oxide that has percent 69.6%, so increase the percentage of iron. Or we can use limonite 2Fe2O3 3H2O. By heating it gives iron 3 oxide that has greater percentage of iron as shown on the screen. Next type of question. What is meant by interstitial alloy? It is the alloy formed when new small size atoms are introduced into the spaces between the metal atoms in the crystal structure, preventing movement of the metal layers, which increase the hardness of the metal and change it to its physical property as malleability, ductility, melting point, electric conductivity, and magnetic property and strength of the alloy to be harder than the pure metal. Example, iron carbon alloy, which is steel. Next type of questions. Next point, substitutional alloy. They are formed when the replacing atoms of the metal in the crystal lattice shape by some atoms. Thus, this occurs when the replaced atoms have nearly same diameter, same chemical properties, same crystal lattice structure. Next point, intermetallic alloy. They are formed when the elements combine with each other, forming chemical compounds with new properties. The formula disobeys the law of valence. The formed compounds are solids. The compounds cannot be formed by metals of the same group. Examples: both of nickel aluminum alloy and copper aluminum alloy that called duralumin, lead gold alloy that has chemical formula Au2PP, and cementite alloy that has chemical formula Fe3C. Next type of question is choose the correct answer. The first point: when magnetic iron oxide reacts with hot concentrated sulfuric acid, what are produced? Is it iron 2 sulfate and water, iron 3 sulfate and water, iron 2 sulfate and iron 3 sulfate and hydrogen, iron 2 sulfate and iron 3 sulfate and water? If you think about it, my dear student, you will find the answer. It will be iron 2 sulfate and iron 3 sulfate and water, as the mixed oxide here forms two types of salts, iron 2 salt and iron 3 salt. Next point: on passing hot steam over red hot iron, it gives what and the hydrogen gas? Iron 3 hydroxide, iron 3 oxide, magnetic iron oxide, iron 2 oxide. If you think about it, my dear student, you will find that the answer, it will be magnetic iron oxide. Next point: when heating iron to oxalate in the absence of air, what is produced? Is it magnetic iron oxide, iron 3 oxide, iron 2 oxide? Said right. If you think about it, my dear student, you will find the answer. It will be iron 2 oxide. My dear student, remember that heating iron 2 oxalate in the presence of air, it doesn't form iron 2 oxide. It forms iron 3 oxide. But in the absence of air, it gives iron 2 oxide. Next point: when iron reacts with dilute sulfuric acid, iron 2 sulfate is formed, not iron 3 sulfate. As what? Iron 2 ion is more stable. The evolved hydrogen gas is reducing agent. Dilute sulfuric acid is an oxidizing agent. Iron 3 ion is not stable. If you think about it, yes, it will be the evolved hydrogen gas is a reducing agent. Next point: when heating iron 3 oxide with carbon monoxide gas at temperature 230 till 300 degrees Celsius, is reduced to what? Iron 2 oxide, iron, magnetic iron oxide, iron 2 carbonate. If you write the chemical equation here, you will find that the answer, it will be magnetic iron oxide. Next point: we can get iron 3 chloride by what? Reaction of dilute hydrochloric acid with iron, passing chlorine gas over red hot iron, passing hydrogen gas in iron 2 chloride, or passing hydrogen sulfide gas in iron 2 chloride solution. If you think about it, here's the answer. It will be passing chlorine gas over red hot iron. Next type of question is give reason for the following. Iron reacts with chlorine, giving iron 3 chloride, not iron 2 chloride, while it reacts with sulfur, forming iron 2 sulfide. The reason for that, because chlorine is a stronger oxidizing agent than sulfur, and the reason for that, as the chlorine has higher electron affinity than sulfur. Next point: iron reacts with dilute acids forming iron 2 salts, not iron 3 salts. The reason? Because the produced hydrogen gas is a reducing agent that prevents the formation of iron 3 salts. Next point, iron reacts with concentrated sulfuric acid forming both iron 2 salts and iron 3 salts. Because sulfuric acid is a strong oxidizing agent giving both iron 2 and iron 3 sulfate. As the equation proceeds on the screen, iron plus sulfuric acid concentrated and heated gives iron 2 sulfate and iron 3 sulfate, and sulfur dioxide and water is produced. Next point, iron doesn't react with concentrated nitric acid. The reason for that, because of formation of non-porous layer of iron oxide preventing further reaction with acid, as its molecules larger than the metal molecule, preventing the reaching of the acid to other molecule of the metal, so prevent further reaction. That's called passivity. My dear students, we have reached to the end of our program today. I hope you understood all the points and different types of questions that we discussed today. So till we meet again, my best wishes for you.